Salve Omnibus. So, one of the topics that I've wanted to address on my channel for a while now, and that I've indirectly addressed in previous videos, is what I see as a glaring blind spot in the classical liberal YouTube community. This sees channels who, when addressing almost all other topics, will consistently stand up for and apply their liberal principles, but when it comes to this topic, they abandon these same principles time and time again without missing a beat. The hypocrisy they show often when addressing this topic, that often turns into outright bigotry, is something which, even if it didn't affect me personally, would still be deeply troubling to see individuals who are supposed to value integrity and consistently be so quick to throw this out because of their personal biases. The topic I'm referring to, of course, is religion. In the year or so that I've been subscribed to, and watched channels like Sargon of Akkad and the rest of this community, as much as I enjoy their content and have no real issue with them being classical liberals, I get really pissed off anytime they talk about religion because it seems that they have no problem with becoming the same authoritarian bullies and moral busybodies that they claim to be firmly against. To be more specific, these channels will assert and in their videos defend freedom of speech and the press fervently and admirably. To them, obviously, free speech is integral to what they believe is a free and liberal society. However, when it comes to freedom of religion, they will at best be extremely reluctant to say they support it, but often they will just act like a "we know better than you" class of enlightened Brahmin who think they can selectively choose in what way people are allowed to, if at all, express their religion. And what better group of people to decide on how you can worship than those who can be characterized by an irrational intolerance and hatred of religion, and a disdain for people who have the audacity to hold different beliefs. I mean, they can't be wrong. A British man smoking cigarettes and drinking whiskey told them everything they needed to know about religion with no biases at all. Sarcasm aside, I know this sounds hyperbolic, and at this point I do think it's unfair to say that Sargon, Kraut and T and the other classical liberals can only be defined by their atheism. I think the culture wars have expanded far beyond that now. But it becomes quite clear that these individuals who are supposed to be against ideological biases are either so clouded by the lingering impact of new atheism, or they fully commit to that sentiment that they seem unable to see how their views towards religion contradict their liberal principles. In short, my problem with classical liberals is not that they're liberal, it's that they act illiberal sometimes. Now, this is a very important issue to me, not just because when they indict religion, it's an indictment of me, but because I think this is a gross violation of the liberal principles that they're supposed to uphold, and to me it damages any trust I place in them. Essentially, I would not trust these classical liberals to value my individual rights were they to come into political power. So these are some serious claims I'm making here. I'm asserting that there's a fundamental flaw that seriously compromises the integrity of a movement that I think most people who watch this channel in some way support. I mean, they're an invaluable community standing up to the progressives in their own spaces, namely YouTube and Twitter. I want this community to thrive, but I also want to call them out when they contradict their own ideas and principles. So I think I want to create a video series called Classical Illiberals, where I illustrate all the problems that these classical liberals have in regards to their relationship with religion, how they contradict their own ideas, and how we got to this point in the first place. Because I really think it's important that those of us in the traditionalist community call out this massive blind spot the classical liberals seem unable or unwilling to address. Anyways, let's get to some actual examples, and I can think of no better clear-as-day example of classical liberals contradicting their own principles than the aftermath of the 2016 presidential election. Now, for most of the election, the general consensus from this community has been that Donald Trump is the favored candidate. This is largely because of his outspoken opposition to political correctness, Islamic terrorism, and of course the monumental issues with Hillary Clinton. And all through this campaign, they've consistently called out progressives for calling Trump a racist, Nazi, Hitler, fascist, and all the rest of it, asserting that these claims are rightly absurd, not based in reality, and hyperbolic. And then when Trump got elected, and as predicted they started making videos as a response to the election and its fallout, I sat there with my jaw open as these same liberals who called out the endless hyperbole against Trump turn around and say with a serious voice that Vice President-elect Mike Pence wants to electrocute gay people.
was like 100% sure she was gonna take it, just based on everything I was seeing, like the media, like SNL pushing it, everyone making fun of Trump, Trump's sexist, Trump's racist, oh, isn't Trump terrible, Trump, I hate Trump. All in all, I think America just wanted someone who tells it like it is. I think they also wanted someone who would call Islamic terrorism for what it is. Islamic terrorism. And to all you psycho libshits that are planning to assassinate Trump or wishing that he gets assassinated, let me just remind you that the vice president thinks that electroshock therapy helps turn gay people straight. Friendly reminder. Making fun of Trump, Trump's sexist, Trump's racist, oh, isn't Trump terrible, Trump, I hate Trump. Vice president thinks that electroshock therapy helps turn gay people straight. Friendly reminder.
I'm not exactly thrilled myself over having a Trump presidency in the United States for the next 4 or even 8 years. Heck, his vice president is even more of a disaster. A guy whose home state almost is a theocracy and whose incoherent gibberish over creationism and gay people would drive anyone with more than 2 brain cells up a fucking wall. And what else did you expect them to do? This was an election which you decided to fight over non-issues and matters of utter and complete irrelevance. People's manners and naughty words were chosen as campaign issues and topics in favor over addressing actual fucking issues.
The hypocrisy is infuriating, isn't it, gentle viewer? Apparently it's wrong to use hyperbolic statements to empty of any real substance when it's lobbed against Trump, who isn't characterized as being a religious conservative, but it's perfectly fine to do it against Mike Pence, who is. And I think it's the fact that these liberals either can't see the problem with this, or just don't care, that really pisses me off. The claim has no validity to it, and it shows that these classical liberals have never actually bothered to either look up the validity of this claim, or what conversion therapy actually is. Congratulations, you're just as bad as the SJWs. Suffice it to say, I really wish this bigotry by classical liberals towards religious people, specifically Christians, would stop, for both our sakes. For one thing, the religious right, as in Christians who hold socially conservative views, is not the enemy you think it is. I can personally guarantee you there was no attempt to make America into a theocracy under George Bush in the 2000s. What the religious right then, at most, could have accomplished and wanted to accomplish would be an overturning of Roe v. Wade, an amendment to protect marriage, and allowing prayers in schools. And guess what? This is the policies we had in the 1950s and before. You know, when America was totally theocracy, right? Now, I will admit that the evangelical movement has had the problem of really bad PR and making some really stupid decisions, and I'll be the first to call out the claims that video games are satanic, even though only a small number of Christians actually made those claims, and you'd be hard-pressed to find any of them that support it now. But as of now, I as an evangelical can assure you that the overwhelming majority of conservative Christians in the United States, and probably Britain, are completely in support of freedom of speech, expression, the press, and yes, religion. In fact, Christian conservatives have more or less been in agreement with you on most of these issues you have a vested interest in. During the Brexit vote, Christians were the religious demographic which most solidly voted leave, while atheists mostly voted to remain. Evangelical Christians solidly voted for Trump, and for much of the same reasons you did, and evangelical Christians are among the least likely demographic to support Black Lives Matter and all this racial nonsense. It was Christians who were against third-wave feminism, political correctness, and the current year argument long before you were. After all, you were using it against us to begin with. Bronze Age myth fallacy, my ass. And so I think classical liberals should start stopping their bigotry against Christians and recognize them, well, us, as allies in this culture war against progressives. And on a last note, to really ram this home to classical liberals, why the hell do you reel back in horror at the notion that a politician says they believe in God and that their faith influences their decisions? Does that mean they want to turn us into a theocracy? No! Why do you compare parents taking their children to church to honor killings in the Islamic world? Why do you not think that liberal principles of free expression don't extend to religious beliefs? If you actually want to be called liberals, start acting like one. Oh, and Christopher Hitchens was just as bad as Anita Sarkeesian. Diabana, bitches!
Wir wollen unser alten Kaiser Wilhelm wieder haben. Wir wollen unseren alten Kaiser Wilhelm wieder haben. Aber den mit dem Bart, mit dem langen Bart. Aber den mit dem Bart, mit dem langen Bart. So schwärmten unsere Eltern von der guten alten Zeit. Sie liegt so fern und weit, die alte Kaiserzeit. Doch war sie wirklich besser, diese gute alte Zeit, als einst der Opa, die Oma hat wohl gefeit. Ja, mit Jagdgesang und mit Hörnerklang, rings um Fair Berlin, durch die Wälder ziehen. Ja, mit Jagdgesang und mit Hörnerklang, ritt die Oma mit dem Opa. Doch sie hielten an und küssten sich, sonst wären wir heute